The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris follows Clarice Starling, an FBI agent who, in order to catch a flayer of women's skins, consults a similarly deranged cannibal. His name is Hannibal Lecter, and through his interpretation of evidence, she is able to identify the serial killer and confront him in his dungeon. Though generally marketed as horror, the novel and subsequent film adaptation is actually the culmination in a developing trend of detective fiction. The detective story is generally said to begin with The Murders in the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe. It follows Augustus C. Dupin, an eccentric detective with a love for the macabre, who investigates the savage murder of two women. The door to their suite is locked from the inside, and other detectives are befuddled by one of the victims being stuffed in the chimney. To solve the mystery, Dupin employs a method called ratiocination, which combines intellect with imagination to put himself in the mind of the killer, who turns out to be an orangutan. Sherlock Holmes was heavily influenced by this story. The study in Scarlet, his first adventure and hunt for a killer of Mormons, even describes him as the English Dupin. He is equally eccentric, battering corpses to examine the bruising. The walls of his home are full of bullet holes, and he doesn't eat to avoid diverting blood from his brain. Rather than ratiocination, he employs a technique called deductive reasoning. This entails testing a premise by using all available information in order to prove otherwise, or in his own words, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Sherlock Holmes has a brother called Mycroft. He first appears in The Adventure of the Greek Interpreter, where it is revealed that he has more intelligence and a greater capacity for deductive reasoning than even his brother. His problem is that he is lazy and lacks ambition, requiring motivation to employ any of his talents. Sherlock says, "If the art of the deductive began and ended in reasoning from an armchair, my brother would be the greatest criminal agent that ever lived." This inspired the trope of the armchair detective, an investigator who never visits the crime scene, but solves mysteries based on second-hand evidence. Baroness Orczy wrote The Old Man in the Corner, a series about solving crimes while discussing them with a journalist. An armchair detective also appears in The Paddington Mystery by Cecil Street, and G.K. Chesterton's Father Brown could be called one when he uses facts to piece together historical mysteries. The most significant armchair detective, however, is probably Nero Wolfe. Created by Rex Stout, he is severely overweight, reducing his movement to irreducible essentials, and so relies on an assistant to be his arms and legs. Following in this tradition, Thomas Harris invents Hannibal Lecter. Rather than being overweight, elderly, or excessively lazy, his handicap is the walls of his prison. To participate in detective work, he must cooperate with FBI agents. In Red Dragon, he works with Will Graham to apprehend another cannibal, and later Clarice Starling. What makes this character so fascinating is his motivation. Unlike Sherlock Holmes and Nero Wolfe, who use their skills for the good of humanity, he views them as a means to gratify his own narcissism. He is also a refreshing twist on the armchair detective, because his moral depravity and love of the macabre returns us to the darkness of mystery fiction when being devised by Edgar Allan Poe.